Hello and welcome to Free Cheese episode 458. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Matt Zellner.
Hello.
Mark Augustiniak.
What's up?
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. It is season 10. 10 years of the podcast. And for our 10th year, our 10th season, we are looking at one game per week, talking about it, and then ranking it on a list that we're calling The List. This week's game is Paperboy 2, the Tengen Classic. More on Paperboy later, more on ranking it later. Did Matt, Mark, as a child, as a youth, did either of you ever have a paper route?
Did not.
Like, did I deliver?
Yes. Did
Yeah.
you ever deliver newspapers as a children?
No. I helped a neighbor's mom drop off Avon little catalogs.
Oh, yeah.
That was awkward. Depending on the house, because, like, the storm door would be closed, but the other door behind it would be open. And you see some person just sitting there watching TV, and I'm just, like, trying to be quiet and, like, put it on the doorknob and then run away. Or,
Yes.
or like, a dog's coming to the door. You don't know if the storm door is going to keep the dog inside, or... That's the most I've ever...
Yeah, I never had a paper route. I did help a friend's dad was a paper boy man. This dude, I think, owned and operated a driving school and then also delivered newspapers. So he'd wake up at like 4 a.m. to go downtown and pick up the papers, and then he'd go deliver them, throwing them out of the window. And we were usually up that early in the morning, so sometimes we would, like, we had stayed up is what I mean. And we would, certain times, if he were behind or whatever, we'd help to like bag up the papers if they were.
It's such a weird concept to accept that, like, we, like, just like in a neighborhood, you just have like a random van, wood panel, drive by, like, throw shit in your yard, and then just keep going, and we're just okay with it.
And keep trucking.
It's like, that could have been anything. I could have just thrown anything in your yard, and nobody said a thing.
Not only did you just accept it, you paid for that.
See, well,
Right, yeah, that's a paid service.
see, that's the thing. I didn't know. I mean, as a kid, you don't know that. I just thought it was just very free newspaper. Like, everything else in the mail feels like it's free, right? Like, why not that?
My thing with all of that now, I mean, it's bad enough to have digital clutter in the mailbox, but I hate having any, like, I just walked upstairs to grab a drink, and I looked out front to see if a delivery had arrived. It has not, but it's all this mail, and it's all stuff I'm going to just pick up from because our mail we don't have a box, it just goes through the door. It's all stuff I'm going to pick up from the floor, carry into another room, and then put it in the recycling and throw it away.
Yeah, they
It's a
should
waste.
just have, like, a separate mailbox out front that's just called no thanks, and then they can take that and then just handle it for you.
Or we should stop printing it. We should stop sending this stuff. Like, I don't know. I didn't ask to be on any of these lists. I think the only things I need to receive in the mail are nothing. So let's just stop. Can we shut it down?
The U.S. Post Office needs more Charlie Kellys in their mail rooms. They need to separate it. Burn a third of it. Resend back out to come back around. And then the important stuff that looks important, just send it out.
Actually, I think they're hiring right now, so I think I might...
Yeah, get in there and start burning some mail, Mark. Anything that says 20% off,
This
burn
company
right
needs
away.
Zero APR. That too.
Burn that.
Yeah, 0 APR, 20% off. What other thing?
Exclusive offer. My favorite one are the things that I've told explicitly, account-wise, do not send me physical mail. And then they send me a thing saying, like, thanks for opting into paperless whatever. And then also continue to send me... Anyway. None of that's happening on the streets of Easyville or... They didn't have names for the Easy Street, right? That's the old... Yes. Medium Road, Hard Way. They're not in
I think it
Paperboy
was
2,
Middle
are they?
Road.
Middle Road? Can't remember
The
now.
street names are in Paperboy too.
They're in 2? All right.
Yeah, they're right in the middle of the street.
Well, we're going to talk about my experience with Paperboy 2 here shortly. But first, for the listeners, let's introduce the game. Paperboy 2. So, first off, Paperboy, an arcade game. Paperboy 2, not released in the arcade. Straight to your home console of choice. First released in 1991. It came out on a lot. Like Genesis, Amiga, Game Boy. We're today specifically talking about the Super Nintendo Entertainment System version. Developed by Tengen, published by Mindscape. Back of the box quote. This one's a doozy. Y'all ready?
Bring it.
Rise and shine, bud. A great day's ahead. Just waiting for you to become the neighborhood's terror of a paperboy. But it's a whole new job with double the fun and twice the excitement. That's right. You've now got houses on both sides of the street, which means even more customers' homes to deliver papers to and non-subscribers' homes to damage. It also means you've got to watch out for lots more obstacles and meanies that are out to knock you off your bike, wreak mischief across the town, or do good deeds like saving the baby and stopping the burglar. At the end of your day, hone your skills on the all-new BMX-style test course. Add the new awesome graphics, and you're in for a rip-roaring time on your bike. It kind of perfectly encapsulates the Paperboy experience, right?
It perfectly encapsulates how random that course at the end of the level is.
That as well is a very... I don't know why... That just seems like something that developers were having fun with.
It is fun. Like, it's fun to go fast. Like, it's like the one opportunity to go fast and just fling papers mindlessly, I guess, without hurting yourself.
Yes.
That should have been a whole game in itself.
Yeah, it's odd that I think we've done this a lot this season. I've done this because I have a very limited imagination, I suppose. But revisiting so many games this season has made me wonder why we've not seen more games like this. Like, why has there not been? I mean, it's probably like Monkey's Paw for sure, but like a mobile Paperboy, how did that not happen? Or did it happen and it was just so bad that...
I mean, we kind of have a grand scale Paperboy. Like, we have a AAA one. It's called Death Stranding.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, there's no, like, full-on Paperboy that I'm seeing. You know, Paperboy TM is what I'm saying.
You'd probably
Not
have to, like,
finding that at
modernize
all.
it, right? Like, I don't know how frequent newspapers are now. I'm sure maybe it hasn't changed. Maybe that's like the one thing in this world that hasn't changed is newspaper deliveries. But it's definitely not kids on bikes doing it. But
No, I assume it's still just like a mom in a van throwing stuff out of a window.
Maybe that's where Crazy Taxi and Paperboy can cross over somehow, some way.
I was thinking
now you're
like
thinking.
like do like Mega Man Battle Network style, right? Where like you're this little computer delivery program, and you're sending newsletters to people who never subscribed to it in the first place.
You know,
And
you
then
can
once
fix. You know, you can fix the issue of current times by putting the game back in the '90s, right? I know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Big idea. Work with me on that, but you could easily play the game in the '90s, I think.
Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. Paperboy 2. Matt, this was a Matt game. Do we want to jump into why it's a Matt game first?
Yeah, I grew up the Super Nintendo, big part of the house, and I don't know, it was one of those games I kind of kept coming back to because I think I was so bad at it, and I never beat this game, still haven't beat this game, spoiler alert, and I don't know, I don't know what it was about this game. I don't know if it was the sound effects, music, gameplay, that BMX course. It's being so hard. The cover, I have no idea. But I just kept kind of coming back to this game as a kid.
Yeah, I didn't play 2 until, well, a couple years back when you first introduced me to it. But as a kid, Paperboy 1 was my, like, same thing. Like, who cares about a game about being a paperboy? But there's something fun about it, and there's so many little details and weird things about it that, yeah, it rules. Mark, what about you? Paperboy 1, 2, any experience?
Only times I've played Paperboy is with you two.
All right.
I've seen it in arcades and stuff, but it was never like a first choice. Whenever even if I did try it at any other point, was never good at it, and that hasn't changed. But
so,
yeah.
Have either of you tried the arcade game?
No.
No, I probably should.
I tried it once it was like a barcade, I think, in Philly. And I don't know if it was the machine or if this is how it is, but the bike, it's a bike handle with a thing, so you can, a button on it to throw the papers.
Okay, I would like that.
But you, like, I feel like because the character's kind of always moving up and to the right, but the steering, that threw me off. So that was, and it felt really touchy on that machine. I just felt like I kept crashing all the time, which is not too far removed from the actual game because you do feel like you're crashing all the time as it is.
I think the fact that you said Arcade Philly is part of the reason why I don't think I've ever seen it either.
That was the only time, yeah. I've never seen one around anywhere except there. But we'll talk a bit about the Genesis Paperboy 1 and the Genesis Paperboy 2 in a little bit, but I kind of want to hear, like, Matt, what are your long-standing memories about Paperboy 2?
I can't like pinpoint something specific. I just know, like, as a young lad, I played this game a lot, and it was probably one of the most played games. It probably ends up like in spurts of time, ends up being one of the most played games in that catalog that I have or that I own. But no, I think like that music resonates with me still. That's so easy just to get stuck in your head and hum throughout the day. I think I've said this multiple times on air, but that ghost and that dumb sound effect that ghost makes, the ooh, ooh, and all of its 16-bit glory is one of the funniest things to me ever. The dumb ways you interact with the environment, like when the guy's underneath a car working and you hit the jack from under it and the car comes crashing down on him after a 3-frame skip.
Yeah, you commit murder.
I mean, he's laser kicking. He's not dead yet. I mean, he could die off screen, but I don't know it. I'm already on to the next house. The dumb monster hand that comes out, like, yeah, I don't know. I think I remember more of the specific dumb things you can interact with in the world than actually playing the game legitimately. And I think it was like one of the first times where, like, in a game, like, I would like go out of my way to do the things that weren't the objective to entertain myself and like make myself laugh at times, or or whatever. Yeah, sure, I got frustrated dying all the time or whatever, but I don't know, like, I think the balance of things in this world that can make me laugh, or the ridiculous things that are happening when you come to think about it, I think equal out the difficulty at times of this game. And I don't know, maybe that's it, and I just figured it out right now. That's the reason why, but those are the things that I remember are those dumb ways to interact with the world more so than the actual game itself.
Yeah, you nail, I think, the essence of Paperboy with that, where it is just, what happens if I do this, right? Like, can I hit the ghost? What happens? Can I hit that ramp? What happens if I hit the couple swinging on their porch? What happens if I break a window?
Like, in case I guess the listener doesn't know, these neighborhoods aren't like a typical neighborhood. It's like the craziest shit you wouldn't expect to see. Like, I feel like you're kind of just scrolling through the most random houses that don't even look like they'd be physically possible to exist for some of them. And one of them is even a castle with a moat and cannons shooting at you. Like, that's just how ridiculous.
You guys obviously haven't been on my new street I'm about to move into. Just throwing it out there.
Oh, you live on Easy Street?
No, I more so hard way. I got those big luxury mansions right next to me, as well as the. Also, think about this. You know, like the it's not a tree house, but like the kid obviously built by kids fort or whatever. Like that's on a plot of land. They had to probably pay property tax on that. Those kids that are throwing little rocks at you are paying property tax for their little fort
to hit you with slingshots.
But looking back at it, like, this is secretly a horror game, or like a Goosebumps game in a way, because like you got that hand coming out of the gutter, right? Like that to me is like a very Goosebumps, like something I would see on a cover of a book. Then you have the gargoyles that are outside of that gothic house that like shoot fireballs at you. You have that ghost that you talked about, the infamous ghost.
Yep.
There's that scarecrow. If you hit the scarecrow, it chases you if you hit him.
Right.
It's like it's insane. I didn't realize like how much spooky crap is in this, but I kind of appreciate that at the same time.
The lawnmower from Sinister. Also, if you hit that man mowing the lawn,
yeah,
just comes chasing you down the middle of the street.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges of this game is the camera.
Yes.
Just like how limited.
Yeah, it's very limited perspective.
It's great on the sidewalk, but like it's kind of unfair to have cars and stuff in the road.
Yeah.
Like you can never see that until it's too late, because you can't full on stop. You're always going forward at a pace of some kind, and it's usually too late, even if you like stop and creep left or right. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge for sure. I don't know if we're getting into like gripes here, but I would say this is a very, very repetitive game. Like the fact that you have to do Easy Street 7 times, and then you have to do Middle Way 7 times, and then you got to do I might screwed it up. Hard Way or whatever ends up being the last one 7 times. It's a lot. Obviously, the world changes depending on your delivery status and stuff like that, but it is like not much is changing, or not enough is changing to make it 7.
Honestly, yeah, like I could never get past Easy Street because I really don't think it's that easy. At least
no.
Especially when it comes for me, like I suck with memory. So like to know what houses you're actually supposed to deliver the newspapers to versus the unsubscribers, you could show me that map all you want, but I'm not going to remember the exact positioning of those houses. But when it comes to the game, like I need to have like a reference or like a little mini map at all times of like, all right, this is the house to do it or something. I could never remember.
I think a mini map would help. One of the things that I noticed this time around would happen, like on your second go through, right? Mm-hmm. After you get through whatever, the houses you screwed up the one before that are now no longer on the subscriber list, they're still colored in. They just say keep out. The one thing I remember from the first Paperboy is that those would actually switch colors. Like they would black out in the
I thought they
different
switched
days
colors
of the week.
here.
Do they? I feel like it just like said keep out, like don't.
Yeah,
like I thought it was like.
I could have swore they changed colors because I was gonna joke that like they not only unsubscribed from the newspaper, but they decided to paint their house out, in one day because they changed colors.
So maybe this is the part where me playing every version of this for this episode is weighing in.
No, but because usually like the houses that are subscribed, they're usually brighter or like a pastel, like a yellow, a pink, a bright blue or something like that. And then like the houses that aren't subscribed, that aren't castles or kids' forts, are like a darker shade. So like a pink house that was
Okay.
subscribed, but then all of a sudden become like a dark blue. That will very much match a color scheme of the rest of the unsubscribed houses.
I didn't know that.
But then the other part for non-subscribers is like those interactables in the world where like if you do certain world events, you'll pick up new subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of across the board, both games. One of the other big additions to this, so the two big things I think changed with Paperboy 2, the three big things I think changed with Paperboy 2, the aforementioned kind of, I think, spookiness and creepiness, like they leaned into that stuff to give more, I think, just stuff to interact with in the world, like the monsters, the different hazards that can appear. They added a playable paper girl as an option, and they give you the option to deliver on both sides of the road. So you can use L and R to throw your papers left or right. You can also use, the face buttons each map to, either left or right on the road. But there's that element of the game that's different that just kind of adds a bit more of a tale, I think, to the neighborhoods. And you get to a point where the neighborhoods start to go one direction, go another direction, come back. Like there's, a lot of different variety to the overall map.
I appreciated the shoulder buttons for the papers, because at first I was using face buttons and I was like, I keep getting my wires crossed with it and getting stuff backwards.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, you can just do shoulders. That's so much better. And I felt
it was a lot. Yeah.
I mean, my aim was still terrible.
I feel like I should use the shoulders, but I guess I got so used as a kid with face buttons that I went right back to it.
Hey, whatever works
Again.
for you. I do appreciate the awareness that this game has, where like it has like it kind of has its own physics in a way. So like there's that house with like the senior citizens like on a little swinging bench, and there's like a ramp in front of it. And I meant to throw the paper before hitting the ramp, but because I was in the air, it still hits the house. But I like that it acknowledged that I hit like the top window and to put a hole in it. And I just wasn't expecting that to happen. So I like that little attention to detail. Whenever
it knew about your height and your relative space your relativity to other objects on the map.
Yeah.
I did the exact same thing where I was like, "Oh, am I going to hit the old? Oh, never mind. I broke the window." All that fun stuff. It might be, maybe, I don't know if it's too early to start talking about version differences, but that's kind of where I want to head next with this.
No, I was just going to joke about the physics, like the power of a newspaper. Like, it can hit away a jack. It can turn that old couple swinging backwards. It can
Stop
it can stop a baby in motion. It can stop a tire that's rolling after you. I think it just goes with what I was saying earlier, just like how absurd this game is. But it's just all the interactivity and fooling around is what it is. But yeah, no, the power of that paper. I just wanted to mention that if we're talking about physics in this game.
Yeah, that there's also like a very like extreme specificity you have to have when approaching a ramp. You notice that a lot in the BMX course at the end, where like you need to be exactly where you're supposed to be on that. There's no room for error or forgiveness. Kind of.
And that throw mechanic, like it actually like kind of like it with the targets, like it kind of recognizes the fact that if you were to throw like a paper, like you're gonna have that form of momentum just because of how real life physics work. So like I do appreciate how the game kind of did that. And I think it did it for difficulty reasons as well, and it's definitely very floaty, but again, it's Super Nintendo, I'm not going to ask too much of it. But yeah, no, like trying to hit like a moving target while you're moving is incredibly difficult, much like it probably would be if you were on a bike. So I do like that mechanic, despite it making this game incredibly difficult. Did you all just with that mechanic? Did you all like watch a speed run or like a long play of this at all? Like watch someone good play it? You know that dog that chases like the fire truck or the one of the trucks that goes by in that midway point. Yeah. Dude would throw. I watched a dude like be straight on ahead of the dog, throw the paper to his right, and then it would hit the dog. Like he timed it. It was incredible to watch, and watching people play like that was incredible. How they timed the papers like based on distance and how
knowing
far.
Exactly
yeah.
I can do that, but mine is like you're talking about the Dalmatian that runs across.
Yeah, I mean, well, I use that one specifically, but yeah, any of that stuff.
Like I remember like. I can do that, but it's because I'm throwing 3 or 5 papers generally in that direction. You know what I mean? I did feel like I was getting better at once you learn the angle in which you need to approach something, and you can kind of start to tell like, okay, that's a customer house. I need to get ready to throw in the mailbox. There's specific spots you don't always have to be in the mailbox, right? Like you can land on the porch. You just can't like break a window or whatever. Like you have to be.
Yeah, always kind of like door or mailbox that in that area, and you're fine.
Yeah.
But no, I think this is a good segue because as I was watching his long plays, I happened to see some long plays for other consoles, and man, that Sega one looks a bit different.
It is a bit different. There's a jump button. So you can jump the curbs.
Oh.
That's nice. I wish I had that.
Yeah.
Just the animation on it, too. Like it looked like the bike had like a slight wobble to it. Like if you were pedaling. Even like the UI of your paper stack, it was like across the top. It didn't have the count. You just kind of like visually saw like, oh, I'm midway across the top of the screen. And
there were 10 of them or whatever. Yeah,
and then I heard the difference in music as well. Like, it was the same thing, but sounded completely different.
Yeah, totally different sound to it. And I think I liked the sound on the Genesis one better. To me, it did feel smoother. I know, Matt, you'd kind of lamented frame rate on the Super Nintendo one, but I didn't really run into that so much until the BMX course at the end was a little rough. But the Genesis one overall did just feel a bit smoother. Having so much familiarity with Paperboy 1 for the Genesis, I could see that Paperboy 2 on the Genesis was more a direct sequel to it than anything else. All those same systems you were seeing, the papers across the top, the way the bike kind of rode, all of that stuff was very much there in Paperboy 1. Another thing that carried over is the fact that you could choose between easy, middle, and hard from the start.
Oh.
So you'd start a level and you just pressed right or left. The same way on the Super Nintendo, you like could press right on the numbers to like increase the what was it? The not level number, level what did they call it?
Oh yeah,
I don't remember. But there was that piece. Like you can just hit left or right to swap between easy, middle, and hard. And of course, they still have Paperboy and Paper Girl. But Genesis being 3-button, your 3 buttons were left throw, right throw, and jump. And yeah, you could jump the curb, which made it very easy to pick up papers had you run out of papers or needed new whatever. Or to get away from the aforementioned cars in the middle of the road, you could just quickly like jump up the curb, which was a welcome change from the first Paperboy, because if you got close to a curb, you just ate it. Like, you were not going to survive at all. But it still has the same kind of physics that the first one did, and the same kind of, like, I think, interactivity and sensitivity with the ramp jumps. The one thing that was different in terms of physics between this and the Super Nintendo version is the paper throwing. The arcs were not the same angles. So after I'd played a good bit of the Super Nintendo and then jumped to Genesis, I had to kind of like rewire to angle up my shots and things like that. I was like, okay, well, if I'm going here, let's go. So I fired up Paperboy 1 for the Game Gear to see what that was. And that was basically the Genesis Paperboy 1 on a Game Gear. It was about what you'd imagine. But it felt very close to the Genesis version. I was surprised. Like, it was pretty accurate. And then, of course, I needed to see Paperboy 2 on Game Boy and NES because it was released on both of them as well. Surprisingly, nearly identical on Game Boy and NES. Obviously, graphics are different and whatever, but I mean, on Game Boy especially, it was still left throw, right throw, same angles, same exact map layouts, same exact, the gargoyle statues, every like interactable that you had there. In fact, it was kind of like the first time I did the yard you can ride through and then hit the ramp to cut through the fence.
Yeah.
I had completely missed those in the Super Nintendo version for as many times as I had run through those stages. But it was the Game Boy version that like one of them just seemed so pronounced. I was like, oh, I can go through. Oh, and then when I went back to Super Nintendo, I was like, okay, got my new shortcut. I can't jump the curb. Like it's so wild how like varied each of these were, but it worked really well. But again, I thought that was impressive that Game Boy version felt exactly the same as the Super Nintendo version and the NES version, just different graphically. Or a graphic approach.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I did notice like some of the interactables weren't there. So like, I can't say this for Game Boy, but for Nintendo, the little bit I watched of that, the old people swinging was not at that house, or I didn't notice it. And I think like the guy who rolls the tires, there's that mechanic that's under the hood. I don't even think that car was there at all. So. Some of that stuff you miss out on, but it looked, again, I wasn't playing, but it looked very similar in terms of the setup, at least. The
couple on the swinging bench, they were in the Game Boy version. I believe the car was in the Game Boy version. The Game Boy version actually seems pretty accurate to the SNES version, weirdly enough, because it's far more limited than the NES would have been, but yeah, they were able to pull off some cool stuff.
No, but I will say, like, going through the YouTube thumbnails, getting ready for this, just because I needed to see hard way for because I was never going to get there. I saw the thumbnail difference just right away. Like, you can just tell, like, oh, that's a different console. Same game, but different console, which interesting. But that's how games were back then, right? You always yell at me about Aladdin. We've talked at length about the Jurassic Park difference.
It's so, and like, just imagine like the school chatter between kids playing the same game but not playing the same game, and then you would never know, or you would never put those clues together. And it's just like, oh no, I played this game, I loved it. No, I played this game and it sucks. So it's like, oh well, you were playing an inferior version, but that would never be a discussion.
Yeah, now,
but
like,
I think
that's
go ahead, man.
I was gonna say that goes into like a weird thing with how console wars were then and the fanboys then versus now. Like, there's such parity between all these different versions. Besides, maybe, God forbid, the PS5 runs at 58 frames and the Xbox Series X runs something at 60 frames on average. And it's like, oh, Xbox is better, but it's the same fucking game and it feels exactly the same. It's like, I don't know, that's a whole different culture thing there, but like seeing like a game like this and how different it is across both platforms, and then seeing something today, and then I just feel like the fanboy shit is even worse today than it was then, but that could just be the internet and social media, but it's so dumb. It's so dumb arguing about this shit when you see how how far we've come in parity between all these consoles.
Yeah, okay. A couple things you said there I want to highlight. It is easier to see and be exposed to this crap because of the internet. However, as someone who's been subscribed to that Video Game History Foundation magazine thing for a while now, getting new magazines or old video game magazines once a month, looking through the letter section, still the same type of garbage back then. The same sort of like hostility and like speaking in absolution in regards to these things, as if it were the end of the world, that someone would rather have a platform different than what you like. All that stuff was still there. I think it's just
easier.
I think the thing now too, though, is that a lot of people, and this is not, it's definitely not isolated to video games, but I think so much of our culture now is people don't, this sounds like a crazy thing, but people don't want to feel embarrassed. And
yeah,
I think the fact that we can know anything these days means that people expect you ought to know things these days. So rather than, I think where it's born, because this is where I'm at now. I can't just look at something and whatever. I have to figure out like why are we like this? Because I need to find the empathy so that I don't just hate and feed the flames. But I think what happens is people get to a point where they kind of like find excuses for themselves before they really need to, so that they're not called out later for anything. But I think when it comes to video games, it's like people just need to feel validated in their purchases and feel like they're right and they're justified. And I don't know, it sucks and it's crappy, and just like what you like, and it doesn't define you. But to that end, to go back to the version differences things, I think like, yes, games were like wholly different back then. And I think that we've lost something by not having that anymore. I think that there's something neat about, I don't know. We had a good episode last year about like not demakes, but we talked about, what was it? Remember we had a whole thing about like games that were on,
I think it was earlier this year with the game. I'm just trying to remember which one it was.
I just remember we talked about like inferior versions of games, or like
yeah,
that type of thing. And I think that like not having those in place, I think has changed what games we're able to play, and this like creativity that can come out of certain things. Like I think that limitation of certain platforms led to some neat ideas and neat things. Like what did they do in the Game Boy and NES Paperboy 2 that they didn't do in the Super Nintendo one because they couldn't, right? Like I think those things are interesting to look at. But even more so, I think the version differences, the Genesis versus Super Nintendo one in this case in particular, I think leads back to like some weird playground talk of where there's potentially things that happen in one that don't happen in the other, where, you know what I mean? Like those kind of, the same way like last week we talked about NBA Hang Time, there's like the code you can put in, like Mark kind of remembering Dennis Rodman's hair, but like, can you? And like now, of course, we can just look it up. But back then, like maybe you could only change Rodman's hair in the N64 version. Maybe you couldn't in the arcade. You know what I mean? Like those types of things just don't happen anymore because everything's on par across the board. You know, top to bottom.
Yeah,
still, I think
it's. I think you have pros and cons with that, right? Like, you know, I think we're in a different situation than most, where, well, I mean, not most, but like, you know, then a lot of gamers, or we have access to just about every console in some weird way, and you know, not everyone has that, and especially kids, they don't. Like I looked to my left, I have a Switch, PS5, Xbox, PS4, like I had, like, you know, I got everything I need. Also a gaming PC in case something weird comes out there. A lot of people don't have that, so that's where like I'm for like getting the same version of something out if possible. But again, like I understand what you're saying though, where like, you know, games were fucking weird on PlayStation 1 and Super Nintendo when you only had so many things. And God, Final Fantasy VII is considered one, you know, probably considered one of the greatest games, or even Final Fantasies or whatever, but like that game's a fucking broken piece of mess that was patched together by duct tape and paper mache when you actually look under the hood and hear the development stories of that. And that was because of the limitations of PS1. So like, it's a weird, again, it's pros and cons. So I don't know. I feel like if you went one way, people will be missing out, and that's where the business part of it unfortunately gets in the way because there's less copies sold, more development time. But then on the other end of it, like, yeah, we don't get that creativity like we used to. But it's also because of the consoles themselves. They're so similar now. The last console,
Yeah, they're
was, probably the last console difference was PS3 and Xbox 360, and even then, developers figured out how to make parity between their games. So,
and I think that's something where, and we're getting way too tangential at this point, but who cares? We're already here. I feel like there's, I think, a bigger opportunity for indie developers to chase hardware-specific things, right? Because right now, the possibilities are endless, but we also have everything. Sorry to borrow the title of the movie, but we have everything everywhere all at once. Always for it, right? Like, anything you need is just a reach away, right? And like, Matt, even if you didn't have all of the 4 major platforms available right now, even just having one of them is enough to get you basically everything you would need. And like, even still, like, I thought about that too, because going into this generation, I was like, I don't care, I'm not buying either of them. Now I've got both of them, and I keep going. Like, I bought a PSP this year. I'm all over the place, and I don't play enough of any of them. And I feel like what I'd like to see is, as we get more things like the Analog Pocket, as we get more things like the Playdate, I think the Playdate's a unique thing because people are specifically targeting the hardware for that, and you're not going to be able to get games like that on anything else, right? Like, you're not going to make a Playdate game and then also put it out on PS5. Or if you do, I don't know how that's going to work.
Translating would be weird.
Yeah. You got to rotate the DualSense.
Oh my god.
But I think, like, seeing developers target the Analog Pocket versus target the Switch, PS5, Xbox, PC. Like, what can someone do with more power under the hood for a Game Boy today? You know what I mean? Like, I'm more interested in those things to see how that kind of changes moving forward. And I think it's, I don't know, like, you look at the Switch, like, what the Switch actually is, right? Like, remember that core thing of docking the Switch, removing the Joy-Con, what the Joy-Con are, like, all of those things do technically provide a new way to play, but what we've ended up with is a thing that you either hold in your hand or a thing that you either put on your TV, and no one's interacting with the, like, novelty of it. Mostly because the Joy-Cons suck and you can't use them, like, effectively, right? And I hate that I say that, but it, you know, I actively try sometimes. Yeah, like, I want to play with them, like, hold them and use them as the unit, but, like, I just play with the Pro Controller. It stinks.
Pretty much.
Anyway, that's all a weird tangent on where I feel like those building for the platform rather than building to keep up with what's across the board. I think it did lead to different ideas, and it led to stuff where, like, I'm sure that one of these ports was rushed, done in a month, and done poorly, and left a bunch of crap out or whatever. But yeah.
We might have played
anything you want to go? Yeah.
We might have played that version. I mean, hell, the Game Boy, it performs similarly to the SNES. Something went wrong there.
It really did. I was really surprised at how well that flowed. But it reminded me of, like, my first Castlevania was technically the Game Boy Castlevania. And it was not like the NES Castlevania when I'd play it later. Like, there were, you know, you could taste it a little bit, but it was not the same platform movement, the same whip animation, the same whatever. This was, like, pretty beat for beat Paperboy, and I feel like that was impressive.
So yeah, like, maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That way you're not missing out on something you just don't have access to, or something. Like, maybe you're a household that only has a Game Boy or something at that time, and, like, because, like, a couple Game Boy games I feel like did that too. I'm surprised Paperboy is one of them. I wouldn't expect Paperboy to be one of them, but, like, not that there aren't really, like, awful Mario games, but it's still impressive to have good ones on a Game Boy, like the Mario Land series or whatever. And like, I guess that's to be a little more expected, you know, like any first party titles, you kind of want them to be pretty good on their own, and they usually are for the most part. Like Zelda shined on there, Kirby, that's where it started. But yeah, for something like Paperboy, I just wouldn't expect that, because that was like originally an arcade game, right? And then it moved to everything else.
Right. Yeah, I'm happy it was, though. It was a neat thing to see and compare. But I took us quite awfully off track here to get back onto Easy Street. I think overall, I think Paperboy 2 builds pretty well on the Paperboy 1 kind of foundation. I think that it's what you want in a sequel. I think it adds new gameplay. It adds what Paperboy was to me always, because I played so much of that Genesis one. Like, it was exactly what Matt described. Like, it was not always about, can I get papers to all the houses on the street? It was like, can I stop the burglar in the window? Can I stop the baby running down the street? Like, all that stuff. And I think they did that here and added even more. It got a little fantastical and a little, you know, I love the Goosebumps comparison too, Mark. Like, it added so much of those little flavors and elements to it. But I think all of those, like, I think it stepped up Paperboy effectively, for sure.
I want to know.
I can't believe it stopped there, though.
Like,
you know,
I want to know. I don't think it's paper you're delivering. I'm just gonna say it. You're gonna tell me you can just stop a whole ass gargoyle shooting a beam at you? Just nah. Newspaper. I mean, breaking a window seems realistic, but I also don't know from that trajectory of a kid on a bike could actually break a window.
Well,
yeah, that's like sheet glass.
Yeah,
Right.
you got a lot of juicing in baseball getting ready to come up soon. So maybe the Paperboy's juicing, you know? Got that super strength.
Because, like, I'm thinking...
Could be.
I mean, obviously, even on the box art and stuff, it's just a kid throwing the actual newspapers. But in my head, for some reason, I'm still thinking it's how the papers were delivered in my neighborhood, where it's in, like, a little plastic baggie. And they just,
Yeah.
you know, and, like, build up the momentum by swinging it and then throwing it. That I could see breaking a window. I don't know. Yeah, I guess there's a lot to be calculated there. A lot of variables. And also, you can break in real life if you need to. You can actually stop.
Right.
Right. Yeah, because this, you never come to a complete stop if you try. You just...
And you know what?
Come to a slow.
I have a theory on that. It's probably because the bike is too big, and you can't put your feet down.
No, that's bullshit.
Because
he puts his feet down at the end of the obstacle course.
Does it look like it, though?
He's got to celebrate.
I mean, yeah, I guess. Unless they're just, like, hanging out. It's very... It's
I like your theory, but the game obviously disproves that.
It should have... Well, I'm going to say it's unfinished animation, because it should have been him falling over.
And I am convinced now that we had the rushed port of...
If I had that as a kid. I rode someone's bike, and I went downhill. I went down one alley into another, and I couldn't stop. Didn't have brakes. So between the alleys, there's a road, and a car could have came and hit me. And I was just so scared that I was afraid to fall off the bike. So I eventually, at the bottom of the hill, there was a whole field of grass, and I just kept riding circles in the grass until I'd slow down enough to get off. That's the closest I'll get to living Paperboy.
One fun fact I forgot about is Tengen, the developer. Are y'all familiar with Tengen?
A little bit. I don't know off the top of my head. Like, I couldn't name the game.
I feel like I've heard of it.
I know the name.
Somewhere else, not this. But I can't name it.
And I'm going to feel dumb as soon as you tell me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you might not. But let me ask you this, Mark, specifically. Do you know Ultra?
Yes, I am familiar with Ultra.
Do you remember the deal with Ultra? Why Ultra exists?
I don't know that, but I know they made the NES Ninja Turtle games.
They did. You also know that those NES Ninja Turtle games were Konami, right?
Yes.
So, back in the Nintendo Entertainment System days, remember Nintendo was very
The publisher rule.
specific and strict with its publishing rules. So Ultra was a subsidiary created by Konami so that they could skirt around those limitations, because Nintendo only allowed a certain number of games per publisher to be released on a platform in a single calendar year. By creating Ultra, Konami was able to make Konami games and put them out anyway. Tengen was Atari, because the original Paperboy was Atari and Midway, and then Tengen was the same idea, so that they could publish and develop games there. And they were, of course, folded into Warner Brothers once all of that stuff, all the fun things there. But yeah, Tengen did RBI Baseball, Gauntlet, Pac-Man. The one that Tengen really, I think, made the bank for was Tetris, because they did the unlicensed version of Tetris. They kind of was it? I don't know that it was unlicensed. I shouldn't say that. But it was definitely counter to the Nintendo produced version of Tetris was the Tengen Tetris. It's a different cartridge. They really skirted around Nintendo on this stuff. But yeah, nothing. We never got a Paperboy 3. There's not been any thing about paper. It's weird because I felt like these games were fun enough to play. Paperboy 2, I feel like it's not perfect, but there's enough growth over the original that you can see where taking these ideas to the next level could go. Someone should make one.
It could definitely benefit from widescreen.
Yeah, imagine that. If someone built a new Paperboy where you could see the entirety of the map outside of, I think you'd play with that for fun, but not in a way that's unfair.
I have a game on Switch. It might be on mobile as well. It's kind of like a nod to Paperboy. I think it's called VidKid or something like that, where you're a kid on a skateboard and instead of newspapers, it's VHS tapes.
Oh, that's pretty good.
That
yeah,
you can
the
break
concept
a window
is
with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that for sure.
And the tape.
Well, if you got that Titanic dual tape, that could do some major damage. That's stopping tires and bolts.
You're right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a cinder block.
Kate Winslet saving the day.
When isn't she? I also really appreciate in Paperboy the headlines of the newspapers.
Yeah.
When you do something good, when you do something bad, just whatever it is,
dynamic newspaper.
Yeah.
Well, it's dynamic, but it's not, because it's the same police chief pointing at broken windows the entire time, no matter what the headline says.
Yeah, whether you did a good thing or a bad thing.
Or if you stopped a robber or something like that, and see, that's where a sequel could also go next, where it's there's consequences with this. It's not just housing that changes. Oh, you stopped this robber? Oh, well, now later down the line when you're on Hardway or something, there's all of a sudden this van is just chasing you behind you the entire time because it's the sticky bandits or something. Or turn into a Home Alone game secretly.
I don't know. That Home Alone 2 for NES is not. It's a rough time. I think we've reached the point where it's time to rank Paperboy 2 among our list of games for the season. Listeners, if you'd like to follow along with our list, you can do so over at thefreecheese.com/thelist. Find out where Paperboy 2, well, we're going to tell you where it ranks in a second, but you can check out all the other games we've ranked with quick links right to the episodes in case you missed one this season. Matt, what's your gut? I mean, not that it's your call, but it is your game selection. How does it hold up after 30 years?
I don't know. I think I don't think I ever really had a reason I put on the list besides like it was a game of play. Like I don't think I had like a specific thing I was targeting here I wanted to showcase or whatever. I don't think I realized why I liked the game so much until I talked it out about an hour ago. So, yeah, I don't know. I think they will live around the bottom again. Revisit last week. I think it's right around there between Stanley Cup, Hang Time, and Devil's Crush. Maybe going to ESPN football or PsyOps, depending on where you go. But I think that's where it stays because like the gameplay is like fine, and I think it's brutally hard for no reason. And I don't know, but I think the enjoyment is the stuff that I'm sure the developers knew people would enjoy, but I think that was like the fluff, and I don't know, I think the fluff was the more enjoyable part than the actual core game. I don't know, it might be too low, but that's where I'm leaning.
No, but there's part of me that like puts this below Sunset. Not because this is bad, but because I think about where Sunset was really good. And that's Sunset Overdrive for the listeners.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that at all. Actually, I kind of agree with that now as you framed it that way. Yeah, because the thing about Sunset is, and I think we as we've gotten away from that episode, we've kind of put more and more of a bad rap on Sunset. I think Sunset's issue was it just outstayed its welcome. I think if that was a tight 10-hour experience, it's a fine game. Probably goes a little bit higher on this list somewhere. I think it's just the fact that it's an open world. It came out in that open world, do all the check boxes. Also, kind of playing it after, I mean, and still in the middle of it. It's evolving, thank God. But like, still, you know, I think we still have fatigue from open world games from all that time. I don't know. I feel like Sunset kind of got a little bit of a bad rap, especially as it's gotten farther away. So yeah, no, I agree. That's going under Sunset.
I think it's good to flesh out the bottom of the list too.
Well,
I'd put it
when we play
right
banger
above Billy
after
Hatcher.
banger. I'm sorry, Mark. What'd you say? I cut you off.
I put it right above Billy Hatcher.
Let me ask you this. What about below it? Again, not that Paperboy 2 is bad, but just that is the core of Billy Hatcher stronger than the core of Paperboy 2?
I think.
Well, all right. So let's go back. Rewind.
Both have bad cameras.
6 months ago. That's what I was going to say. All right. So I was going to start pulling out the gripes. Cameras, bad on both. Level design.
Billy Hatcher, I think, is more creative. There's variety.
I can agree with that. I mean, think about it, like Middle Street and Hard Way are just like they just zigzag more. All right. Art. I picked the wrong version, so I give it to Billy.
Wow.
I mean, Billy basically has that Sonic art going on.
Never said Sonic's art was bad.
It's very distinctive, you know? Stands out.
What else? Billy Hatcher outstays his welcome. You probably die in in Paperboy before outstays his welcome. So I think point Paperboy.
Yeah. The sudden off-screen kills in Paperboy is like
it's
a
just
big
a hard.
annoyance.
This is a hard game. And I think that comes from the. I know it's not. This one was not arcade, but I think it comes from that roots of feeding the quarters, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
No, yeah, definitely. And unfortunately, I think that just doesn't make it age well.
No. That ghost sound though, plus 5 points.
The ghost sounds very good.
I do like the details within the neighborhood. I do like those characters. I just don't like it when I'm bad at it.
Yeah, I'd rather listen to that ghost sound on repeat than Good Morning 1,000 times in a row.
True.
Good morning.
That I'd rather hear Paperboy music than Billy Hatcher menu music. It's a fever dream.
Yeah, that's one way to describe Billy Hatcher.
Billy Hatcher also has that dope ass penguin though.
Does have the penguin, but Billy's not a girl. Can't be a girl with red hair though.
Well,
you can.
Oh, right, you can. Yeah. You have to. Yeah, well, not from the start.
Fair.
Can also be Sonic.
That's -5.
that's plus 50.
All right. With that being said, Paperboy.
Yeah, I guess. All right, Paperboy can be the new bottom. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not against. Again, it's the repetitiveness. If you actually try to chase the game, I think it's like by the time you get to Thursday, you're like, all right, give me to the next street. And that's the tough part. And I can honestly say I've never seen Hardway in person, or like me playing. And that middle street, I think I get there and I survive until Tuesday. And that's about it. So I need to get those route numbers to get me anywhere, which I should have done in hindsight. I did not think about that until it was too late, which was this morning.
I'm sure its stay will be temporary.
I hope.
Oh. Again, I don't think it's... I never thought Billy Hatcher was a bad game. I don't think anything on this list so far has been a bad game.
No.
I think...
But we have to rank everything. Everything has a place on the list, so something has to be at the bottom.
Right. I think...
Honestly, my score for this is quite similar to Billy Hatcher, if I have to say that out loud.
Yeah.
So.
I think Billy Hatcher had good ideas, just poor execution.
Yeah, Billy Hatcher, not a bad game. It's just long and frustrating for some odd reasons that I feel like were just oversights.
Yeah. Well,
would your
we have successfully...
I know we picked the wrong version, but Joe, you have more hands-on experience with the Genesis version. Would you have changed score or maybe jumped up the list, different version?
I dig that there's a jump button, but other than that, they're still... The core of the game is still the same. The jump button gets you out of a couple situations and gets you paper refills a little bit easier, but otherwise, it's the same game.
More so curious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've successfully dethroned Billy from the bottom. Can next week dethrone Wii Sports from the top? Hard to say, but tune in and find out in episode 459 when we talk about... Does anybody else want to announce the game? I get to say the game every week.
I honestly
do either of you
don't know which one's next. So I can't.
Oh, I see it now.
I think I know which one.
You want to hit him up, Mark?
I want Matt to guess.
Well, if I say the wrong one, then I'm gonna spoil it.
Never mind. I didn't think that through. Take it back. But sure, I can announce it. Yeah, tune in next week where we'll be talking about Pikmin 3.
Yeah, buddy.
That would have been my guess.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, and we are, well, we're not quite halfway through at that point. No, we're more than half now. I don't know where we are. This is all. I think we're more than half now, because we got 45 total.
I mean, June is
and
the
this is
23.
23. Yeah,
6
so
out of 12.
woo. There it is. So yeah, Pikmin 3 next week. But I'm happy we got to put Paperboy 2 on the list. Like, my time with Paperboy as a kid, plus like what Paperboy 2 is for you as a kid, Matt, I think, and playing it now, seeing that like they really did kind of keep the similar design process. It was good. Well, that's it for us for episode 458. Until next week, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, listener, for listening. Goodbye.